let me address your question first, because I think that's the more central question, and then I'll go to his question on civilization duty, because that is more important. Because let me address the theoretical aspect of it before I jump into its application to a specific circumstance. Right? One, am I couching a bigoted idea through the use of the phrase civilizational identity? Let's address the most uncomfortable question. Right? Are you trying to use the word civilization to run away from what is essentially perhaps a fundamentalist, religiously motivated position? Let's address that. That's the question, right? Why are we beating around the bush? We should have asked that, right? So you don't have to be. This is a civil question even otherwise. Frankly, this would still be a perfectly civil question according to me, and I'm neither right nor left. My position is different. As far as I'm concerned, that's perfectly. Believe that a certain position reeks of hypocrisy. Ask the question, but keep the tone civil. Civility is in the tone, not in the content of the question. So let's come to the question. Okay? So, I'm not Sadhguru. I know how to handle questions. Not that he doesn't, but I think I know. Okay? So, one, let's address the civilizational angle. In every petition that has been filed through organizations that I have represented in court on this particular issue, especially because the intervention petition that was filed in the Rohingya matter on behalf of the Indic Collective Trust, I am the arguing counsel for that particular entity. The conscious position that we took on the basis of records is this, and I'll tie into the central question that you had. One, you're factually incorrect. Manavendra, you're factually incorrect, because the word Rohingya is not to be used in the context of Hindus from that particular region, because colonial records and scholarly records speak to the contrary. The word Rohingya is an upperbranch, a corrupted form of Chittagongians. Okay? So Chittagongian Bengali Muslim laborers who were taken to that particular part and who were settled were the ones who were subsequently given the name of Rohingyas. Okay? And that particular movement, after a point of time, resulted in the quest for the establishment of what they call an autonomous Islamic enclave within that particular state. This is not my language, this is the language of organizations who are fighting for that particular cause. I am not putting words in their mouth or anything in their mouth. Okay? Two, they specifically say that if we do not get an autonomous enclave, so to speak, within this particular entity, then we will rebel and we will ask for a partition, whether we get it peacefully or not. Lad ke lenge ya cheen ke lenge. This is a slogan that has been used before, right? So that is effectively the position. And that particular position has resulted in what? That particular position has resulted in massacres and genocides of every other community except the Rohingya Muslim community, with dramatists personally who claim to act on behalf of Rohingya Muslims carrying out mass executions of which graves have been dug. Okay? So effectively, it's effectively a situation where, thanks to their actions, they have put themselves in one corner, and the non-Rohingya Muslims, so to speak, the Buddhists of that particular country and the Hindus of that particular country end up having been arrayed on the same side. Therefore, they are in a position to say, I don't see a problem of persecution from this particular state because I was driven out as a consequence of persecution from private actors, non-state actors. Okay? Be that as it may, let's take the worst case. Let's address the most uncomfortable question, which is, so are you for deportation of all Rohingyas, or are you for deportation of only Rohingya Muslims and not non-Rohingya Muslims? Answer the question, right? Here is my answer. If you divorce this entire issue from the historical background of the two-nation theory and the partition that subsequently happened, then effectively you're trying to dig into the apple without actually touching the kernel of the apple, or without touching the skin of the apple, which I don't think is possible. Okay? Therefore, according to me, if there is a community which is persecuted there on religious grounds and which resonates with the fundamental premise of the two-nation theory, then those people have no other option but to enter this particular country. And the one question I don't think anybody has asked, or the example has never been cited, is India did not have a problem with Afghans coming to India. during the course of Talibanization of that particular country, because the IB did not raise the kind of red flags that it has with respect to Rohingyas. Therefore, if this were to be an animus based on religion, then there are any number of examples that you'll find in Lajpat Nagar in Delhi, which clearly show that these people have been provided all resources of the state and not on the basis of any religion, right? The question is of security. Now, in terms of civilizational duty, whether we believe in the two-nation theory or not, but the countries that we are flanked by on the east and the west clearly believe in it. And they've taken the particular position, which clearly shows in the repetitive massacre of secular bloggers, regardless of the faith that they belong to, even in Bangladesh, right? Therefore, forget for a moment my opinion, the narrative that somebody seeks to build, or the hoax that somebody tries to create or conjure out of thin air. Facts. There is a clear reduction in population, while the rest of the population has exploded. So whether or not you're able to put your finger on causality, you cannot run away from correlation. These are two different things. So these are two very different things, and that's clear. Now, if you want to be forensic about it, when you know for a fact that these people are being hounded in droves and are being pushed to give up what they believe is the faith of their ancestors, then I believe that India, being the largest Hindu majority country, has a duty. I'm saying Hindu majority country and not a Hindu country. Remember that. That's the position I'm clearly taking. Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, in those parts which otherwise were part of undivided India, if there is a persecution of these communities on the basis of religion, then they have a right to come. So somebody asked me this question. Ahmadiyas are being persecuted in Pakistan. What's your position with respect to Ahmadiyas? Shias are being wiped out in Pakistan. What's your position going to be with respect to Shias? Both the Ahmadiyas and the Shias, as a community, and if you were to look at the history during the Lahore session, the Allahabad session, as well as the elections of 1946 when the Constituent Assembly came into existence, were among the foremost voices for the creation of a separate entity called Pakistan. Okay? Of course, it can be, how do you know for a fact that the descendants share the same worldview? How do you know for a fact that they perhaps subscribe to the liberal, modern, secular values that India subscribes to, and therefore they must be allowed? You will operate on two principles. One, they come from a country which perhaps does not share the best of relationships with India, right? And its agencies have proven to be extremely good at manipulating people and using them against India's interests. It is possible for us to actually have an academic discussion on what is the right that you're supposed to give, or what is the treatment that these people are supposed to get. But when it comes to security related issues, I'm certainly not making the statement that all rights must be written roughshod over, but kindly be in the real world when you ask these questions with respect to these issues, because it's a question of security. It's not a question of your house and my house, it affects everybody. So I would certainly say that India's civilizational duty does not mean that it does injustice to the people who live in this country, so that it actually lives up to this ideal of every guest is God. We don't believe in that. If you happen to be a nation state, then your first duty is to your citizens, period. Coming to your point, let's apply the question that you've, rather your entire position to the specific situation at hand, and let me see how it actually plays itself out. You're saying, the moment you initiate this exercise, you're furthering the narrative of us versus the other. And therefore, in principle, an NRC sows more seeds of dissension than unifying the community, so to speak, and therefore, perhaps such an exercise at the outset, economics or otherwise, must be junked altogether, because look at it, it has resulted in creating a certain section. Okay, then what is your solution? Right. 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 Great. Okay. So the first justification is that no matter how globalized the world may become, until, let's say, the nation state withers away, and until all borders cease to exist, the government at the helm has a duty both with respect to external aggression and internal aggression to protect its citizens. And it cannot play into the hands of any dramatis personae who could potentially foment trouble within. Okay? 3. When you know for a fact that there is a certain specific, let's say, design in mind which has played itself out through written documents, through autobiographies and publicly made statements, To turn a blind eye to that particular reality would be to effectively say, gadda khodo aur sir usme andar dal do. Okay, so you can't be an ostrich in that particular situation. 4, when you run the country, and particularly when you take a decision with respect to citizenship, when you take a decision with respect to refugee status or with respect to illegal migrants, you're bound to ruffle millions of feathers, you're bound to hurt a lot of sentiments, and there is a decent chance that none of these processes will ever be perfect, no matter what you put in place in terms of checks and balances, that favorite phrase, okay? It will never be perfect. But you will have to choose between bad, worse and worst, as far as these kind of calculations are concerned. And the best that you can do is to try and reduce human intervention in these processes, to use technology which is relatively neutral for verification as much as possible. If you look at the entire idea of Aadhaar, I fundamentally am against the concept of Aadhaar. And I've written on it multiple times saying that this particular technology and this particular process is bad, both in law as well as the structure that has been put in place. Just go through the discussion of the Parliamentary Standing Committee when Aadhaar was being proposed, with the BJP being in the opposition, and it was proposed by the Congress. And the chairman of the Standing Committee was Yashwant Sinha. He specifically made the statement, you may want to introduce this particular document to try and have a one-stop shop and to also address the problem of illegal immigration, but how do you not know for a fact that this could be used the other way around? Okay? When Aadhaar was being issued, just Google for the number of news reports where fake Aadhaars were being issued specifically to illegal migrants. Because at the end of the day, today they may not be coming for voting rights. Their primary interest is with respect to access to resources. But how long will the government proceed to treat a certain group or a section as a section without rights? At some stage, you're bound to agitate for rights, including voting rights. That is the principle under which you effectively operate. Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, this process is never going to be easy. It is never going to be surgically bloodless. Therefore, as far as I'm concerned, some of these things are bound to be undertaken with some amount of pain. Okay? Assuming that I had a particular bias in mind, I should specifically say, let us jump with this particular process because it is proven ineffective and because it has actually excluded the Hindu community. That should be the argument that I should be making. Instead, I'm saying there is still an argument to be made in principle that the country has a duty and the right to protect its identity, its demographics, its composition, it's something that defines it. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to say let's focus only on the constitution without actually discussing the backdrop in which that particular constitution came into being, then I think it is a truncated position. To use Jinnah's phrase, that's a moth-eaten truncated position, and that may not hold water.